Alright guys, here's an interesting thing I'd like to share with you. This I think is going to be the first video that I do about this new opening. I've just discovered it. I don't know how I've just discovered it because it's really cool. I've looked back on my chess.com history and I've played this opening literally twice in 10,000 games and by accident. And it's called the Vienna Gambit. It comes from the Vienna opening, right? And if you like sharp, attacking, aggressive, trappy openings, then look into this. I've literally only just started looking at it in the last couple of days. There's some great videos out on it. Gotham Chess has got a really good one on all the theory. But let me just give you a taster for just how dangerous this thing is. Okay, so it's an e4, e5 opening. And normally you would expect like knight to f3, knight to c6, and then you might go into the Italian or Spanish or Scotch or whatever, right? Instead, you don't play knight to f3 as white. The Vienna game continues with knight to c3. Okay, slightly weird, but great way to put your opponent already out of his comfort zone. Now, the most common reply to this is going to be to develop the opposite knight, right, to f6. A good reason for that is that these knights are kind of in opposition. So knight to f6 stops white from playing knight to d5, for example, right? It also attacks this square as well, so they're both looking at both of these squares, right? So there. So the knights are locking horns to some degree at the start. So knight to f6 is going to be a very common reply that you see, and this is the Vienna game, the Falkbeer variation. Now you play the Vienna Gambit. This is pawn to f4, and all kinds of fun can then continue. There's a few very bad moves that black can make. One is knight to c6, that's not good. The other one is to accept the gambit with pawn takes f4, and that is exactly what happens in this game. Okay, so it looks fairly normal, fairly ordinary, nothing spectacular, nothing very risky right now, okay? But what you then do is you get to play e5 and you kick the knight. Now check this out. Where can this knight go, right? Can't go here or here because of my knight. It can't go here or here because of my queen. So where does it go? All the way back to g8. Right? So now we've got a significant lead in development. I've got a pawn in the center of the board. Black has already moved one of his central pawns to the flank. I already have a piece developed, and now I have the initiative. Okay? So now knight to f3 blocks off this pawn. Also notice that we have a semi-open file on the f file. This is a big deal in the Vienna Gambit. Right. So now knight to c6 seems to make sense. He's developing a piece. He's putting one attacker on e5. Fair enough. Okay. Now the bishop comes out to c4. Very normal, common opening move. Bishop to c4. Looking down on f7. And queen to e7 seems to make sense. It's adding a second attacker against e5 while there's only one piece currently defending it. Okay, makes sense. And now white castles. So this pawn appears to be hanging, but if you ever play the Danish Gambit, if you've played the Danish Gambit a bit, you know that there's a common trap here. Very simple one, really, that's not too hard to calculate. If knight takes, for example, and knight takes back, queen takes, and then bang, you've got rook to e1, okay, pinning the queen. The queen is on e5, it cannot move, and there's no piece that can get in between, so that queen is a goner. Right, so you don't want to be doing that if you're black. Okay, so now black decides to play knight to h6. Okay, maybe he's starting to think about castling. It's not a fantastic square, it's not a very common square for the knight, but it can't come out to f6 because of the pawn. Not that pawn, there we go. So yeah, maybe he's got ideas of bringing the knight round, I don't know. So I now decided to keep the initiative, play d4, start to press my way up the board. Of course, it's reinforcing this pawn, which is still actually attacked 3 times. Let's look at this. One defender there, and 2 attackers. So black could have actually captured the pawn on that go, but like we say, it would have been a trap, okay, because he can't recapture. Okay, so there we go. So the knight comes out. He figured that out. The knight comes out. I play d4, and now g6 is played. Clearly the intention is to fianchetto to this bishop and castle the king on the king side. Let's see what happens next. Okay, now I see that the pawn on f4 is hanging, so I grab that, developing a piece in the process, and now the bishop comes out, and it looks like the black king is going to be able to scuttle away to safety. Right, but we have more threats. Look at this. Look how I have all 4 of my minor pieces are already developed. My king is already castled. You know, all I have to do to complete development is get my queen off the back rank. All right. For example, queen to d2. I'm then threatening. Yeah, he can't castle because I've got queen takes, bishop takes knight. If bishop recaptures, I've got queen takes knight. All right. So all kinds of threats going on here. But look at this now. So this knight can develop from c3 coming into d5, and there's a massive danger here. Very typical. I'm hitting the queen and I'm also hitting c7. Black does not want me to capture c7 because if I capture, put his king in check with a knight, the king has to move. You cannot block a knight check, right? So he's going to lose castling rights and a rook. Now that can't be allowed to happen, so there's only one move. Queen has to go all the way back to d8. And I am now completely on top of black in this position. So the question then is how to proceed. There's no material has been taken so far. Oh no, I've grabbed 1 pawn. That's it. Right, I've grabbed... Yeah, so black hasn't got a pawn on the e-file right now. How to proceed. So let's have a think. Capturing the knight is a possibility. This knight can start to come in. My pieces really do have an awful lot of freedom at this point in the game. So what I decide to do now is pressurize the queen. The queen's been forced back to d8. There is no e-pawn, right? So there's no pawn in the way. The only real option black has is to block with the bishop. Blocking with the bishop would just be terrible because bishop takes. Then bishop takes, and I've got a fork on the queen and the rook. But f6 is not much better because now I capture the pawn with my knight with check. And let's look at this situation. Right, black is in check. He could move to here, which is going to fall for a discovered check from the bishop when the knight moves. So that's out of the question. This he can't do because of the bishop's threat. Okay, so he's only got 2 moves. He's got that which falls to discovered check, and let's see what squares are covered in that case. So all of these are covered. So if there's a discovered check, you'd have to move back to here or here. You can't go there because of the pawn. Therefore, the only square that he could go to would be there. And I believe then that if I play knight to h7, that would be checkmate already. Okay, so if king to here, knight to h7, not that pawn, knight to h7. Okay, the king's on here. Can't go there because of the pawn, can't go there, and can't go there because of the knight. That would be checkmate. So what can he do? He can do nothing other than resign really at this point. So my opponent resigned here on move 12 of the game. So welcome to the world of the Vienna Gambit. I think that this is going to be my favourite thing for the foreseeable future. Give it a whirl, but check out some of the other links that I'm going to give you if you want to study the theory a bit more, and yeah, try it out. Let me know how you get on, because this is one exciting opening. See you next time.